Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex Sword. Thank you guys for joining us so much on this Thursday evening. And we're going to start off the show with the Just Stop Tweeting. And I don't have the Twitter user pulled up in front of me, so I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm just going to say what the tweet said. I'm sure if you're on Twitter, you've seen it. He says George Pickens is the most talented wide receiver to ever come through Georgia. And listen, I got nothing against Pickens. I thought he was a stud when he was there. Injuries derailed his career. I think you could make a clear argument for him being top three, maybe even second. But there is a clear number one. There is one, and then there is 2, 3, everyone else that you want to name, and it's A.J. Green. And this is where I know this is where you're telling on yourself. You're telling me you haven't watched Georgia football for more than 5 years. And I get it. Hop on the bandwagon. Listen, it's not a bad bandwagon to be on. But if you know Georgia football, if you know football, if you've watched the SEC for the last 25 years, and I was a Georgia fan growing up, so I know every Georgia fit for the last 25 years to come through. A.J. Green was on another level, one of the best college receivers we've ever seen. He was drafted 4th overall, ahead of Julio Jones, who I would also say is one of the best college wide receivers we've ever seen. There's just levels to this, and I respect Pickens, and I think he could have easily been a first-round pick had he not gotten injured, maybe even a top 10 pick. He still is nowhere close to what A.J. Green was at the University of Georgia. There's nothing he does better.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's one of the best college prospects ever. You know, we don't even have to limit it to Georgia, period. A.J. Green was one of the best college receivers ever, one of the best college receiver prospects ever. And it's just, recency bias. I wouldn't chalk it up as necessarily this guy didn't watch A.J. Green. I think that Georgia is so obsessed with the recency of Kirby Smart that like there was never a Mark Richt era or even a Dooley era. It's crazy. There are some who can still recognize it, but it feels like these Georgia fans, me and you both grew up Georgia fans. We both went to LSU. Now we're LSU fans. It just feels like, they're becoming that national fan base that everybody mocks because they can't get out of their own way. They just keep, falling on their face. We know plenty of Georgia fans that know ball, but there's a lot, around these parts that don't know ball. And this just goes to show, because I don't think George Pickens is the second most talented receiver, even in Georgia history. I remember a guy named
Hines Ward.
I was going to say Hines Ward. Mohamed Massaquoi certainly wasn't as talented as George Pickens, but in terms of impact, Mohamed Massaquoi had a significant impact. George Pickens couldn't get out of his own way. I mean, you said injuries, but the guy was suspended too. The Georgia Tech fight. I know there was an off-the-field issue. I mean, George Pickens is incredibly talented, no doubt about it.
That's what it was. It was talent. Okay, if you went off just best receivers, he wouldn't even be in the top 15. He might not even be in the top 20. But just purely off talent, I understand. But then, and listen, I'm gonna defend most Georgia fans because I commented on this tweet, and most Georgia fans were like A.J. Green. Like even the comments on the tweets, like he got ratioed for this tweet. So most people recognize that it was A.J. Green. That's why this is a just stop tweeting. But there were a couple people that responded to me like, yeah, but dude, I just wish we had seen him when he was healthy, which is true. But he could just go up and get anything. Bro, A.J. Green's body control and his ability to go watch a A.J. Green Georgia highlight reel. I mean, it is unbelievable the stuff he was able to do. They're not even on the same level of making hard catches or go up 50-50 balls or stuff. Like, go watch the catch he had his junior year against Colorado on the goal line fade where he one-hands it over his head. You would never see George Pickens do that.
That's on every college football highlight is that catch. It's not just, A.J. Green highlights. It's, you see Reggie Bush's dive over, from the 7-yard line. And then the next one is A.J. Green's catch against Colorado. I did want to say that, if you want to compare and what you were just saying, body control, you want to see a modern day A.J. Green-esque guy, it's Marvin Harrison. That guy, he will be a top 10 pick. He could be a top 5 pick.
I've seen people even say
he could go as high as A.J. Green went, which was 4, I think.
It really depends how the quarterback shake out because he's going to be the first non-quarterback off the board, in my opinion.
No doubt. and George Pickens went in the second round. That's what you mean. That there's levels to this.
Yeah.
George Pickens was great. We all think he was really good player, good prospect. There's levels to this. And Marvin Harrison is closer in terms of, not only how good he is and how good he can be, but in terms of play style. Marvin Harrison plays exactly like AJ Green. So if you didn't get to see AJ Green growing up, and we're young, so that's crazy to say that we could be talking to people that, didn't see AJ Green playing. But if you didn't see him play, turn on an Ohio State game. You probably saw him in that semifinal game against Georgia. Yeah. That's what AJ Green was. He was dominant.
Yeah, and you can talk about Marvin Harrison. AJ Green, he is one of the best Georgia players, not even just to ever come out of the league. One of the most highly touted prospects. You go in front of Julio Jones, who we all saw what Julio Jones was. Like, this guy went in front of him. Marvin Harrison, if I wanted to do like a top 5 wide receivers that I've seen in my lifetime, I'm basically 25 years here. Marvin Harrison's up there, AJ Green, Julio Jones, Jamar Chase. Maybe you throw Odell in there. Like, maybe he's in the mix. Des Bryant's really good. But those guys are on another level. And George Pickens, I understand he tore his ACL. But he went in the second round. And ACLs aren't like they were in the past where they're like, oh, man, it's a career-ending injury. If anyone thought George Pickens was at the level of that guy, at the very least, he would have gotten the top 20 picks. At the very least, if anyone thought he was on the same levels of the guys I just named, even after injury, he would have gone in the top 20 picks. Probably would have gone in the top 10 if anyone thought that. But at the very least, he goes in the top 20. The guy went in the second round. I think Pickens is great. I think he'll have a great pro career. I think he is one of the most talented receivers to ever come to Georgia, mostly because Georgia hasn't had a bunch of just 5-star talented receivers in the history of their program. He's up there. But AJ Green, it's just disrespectful. You're disrespecting one of the greatest college players to ever come in. And I know he didn't win a national championship, but Mark Richt had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I think it was more Mark Richt. Listen, wide receiver is one of the most dependent positions in the NFL. The only case against what I'm about to say is DeAndre Hopkins. That guy put up 1,000 yards regardless of whoever was throwing him the ball.
Hopkins is an animal.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, and I have to throw. I have, because I said 5. Calvin Johnson's on another level, in my opinion. As far as talented, I think he went number 2 overall. He's maybe the most talented receiver to ever play in the league. If he had played a full career, we probably would have seen numbers almost, maybe not Jerry Rice level, because his longevity was incredible. But he is probably the most talented college receiver of my lifetime.
I don't think that's an argument, really. He's the most physically talented receiver ever. No matter college, NFL, Jerry Rice put up more production than any human could even imagine. But if we're talking based purely on, this talent, conversation, there's nobody been more the guy ran a sub 4.4,
4.3, and he was 6'5", 230.
Yeah, could jump out of he wasn't only 6'5", he could jump to, he was a freak of nature. The best receiver I've ever seen play.
Is it weird that probably the 2 best receivers of all time, right? I think most people would agree are Randy Moss and Jerry Rice, in terms of their longevity of their career and everything. Went to Mississippi Valley State and Marshall. Those are the 2.
Well, that separates. Randy Moss was just physically gifted. He's a totally different guy than Jerry Rice was. But I wrote about it recently that Jerry Rice and Tom Brady were the last picks in their respective drafts. And obviously Jerry Rice was a freak athlete. You have to be a freak athlete to get to the NFL. But in terms of the NFL group, he was not anything special.
Is that true?
Yeah. And what separated
Jerry Rice was picked that late. He was a nasty Mississippi Valley State.
What just separated him was his just desire to be great. That's what separates all these guys from the goods to the greats. It's just their desire to, be that guy.
Oh, he was taken 16th. I think you messed that up. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
But he's still
16th overall.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it looks like that. Because I was like, there's no way that's true.
He definitely wasn't heralded for his athletic ability. Sure, he was a good athlete in terms of, everybody, but in terms of NFL athletes, he was not considered a good athlete.
Well, more than it, yeah. I mean, this guy, I mean, you talk about destined to be great. I mean, that point's absolutely true. I mean, this guy was 40 years old. He was 40 years old catching for 1,000 yards in the NFL. Like that just doesn't happen by accident. Like the amount, I mean, Julio Jones is a guy that I thought could challenge. If there was ever a guy, a prototype guy that could challenge, because he was on pace, catching 1,200, 1,300, 1,500 yards per season. There ever a guy who could get close to Jerry Rice, I thought it might be Julio Jones because he had the body type to just be that physical specimen for that long. But injuries just derailed his career. And I'm not going to say he didn't take care of his body, but there's a certain levels to this. And the way Tom Brady and the way Jerry Rice took care of their body to avoid injuries and stuff like that was at another level than the rest of these guys that you see come through the league.
Julio Jones also played a different game. The way he played was very hard on his body. I'm not saying Jerry Rice didn't play, a specific, hard-nosed kind of way of going about football. But Julio Jones was one of the most violent runners, route runners with the ball in his hands at the point of, contact, catch, everything. Julio Jones was a violent receiver. And that definitely, if you watch clips of him behind the scenes telling other guys how he runs routes, it is amazing. He is saying, you run as fast as you possibly can, as explosive as you can at his outside shoulder, and then just slam on the brakes. Your feet are going to take a beating, and his lower body took a beating. That's what,
Julio Jones might also be the best over the middle route runner of all time. Like the way, I mean, the post middle, if you go watch 2016 tape from the year the Falcons obviously broke all those records, that post middle over the middle to Julio Jones in between three defenders was probably their number one play run. They ran it all the time. They started off almost like nearly every game with that play. And that's the most violent play in football. And he was just taking hits, getting up like it was no big deal. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about Netflix's quarterback and Marcus Mariota.